7 levels of a sacked manager. Level 1, the robbery victims. Jupp Heynckes. In 1998, Real Madrid just won the Champions League, their first European crown in 31 years. They'd knocked out Bayer Leverkusen, Borussia Dortmund and Juventus, scored 22 goals and conceded just 5 in 11 matches. The architect of this miracle? Jupp Heynckes. 10 days later, he was sacked. The board decided he wasn't glamorous enough for the Galactico era they were building. Never mind that he'd just delivered the one trophy every Madrid president craves. They wanted star power on the touchline, not results. So they fired him and brought in Jose Antonio Camacho, who lasted exactly 22 days before getting the boot himself. Real Madrid would go through 2 more managers in the next 16 months, cycling through chaos until they finally stumbled onto Vicente del Bosque. Heynckes, he went on to manage Schalke, then returned to Bayern Munich years later to win the treble, the historic one. Bundesliga, DFB Pokal and the Champions League in 2013. But in 1998, winning Europe's biggest prize wasn't enough to save his job. Gary Rowett. Birmingham City were sitting 7th in the championship. They were outside the playoff spots only on goal difference. The team was organised, disciplined and trending upward. Then the board decided they needed a big name to take them to the next level. So they sacked Rowett and brought in Gianfranco Zola. Zola, the Chelsea legend, the Italian magician. Surely he'd work wonders, right? Wrong. Zola won 2 games out of 24. The club barely survived relegation. It's widely considered one of the worst managerial decisions in English Football League history. Rowett's crime? Not being famous enough. His record was solid. His tactics worked. But the board wanted a name that sold shirts, not a manager who won matches. Julian Nagelsmann. March 2023. Bayern Munich were in the Champions League quarter-finals with a perfect record. They'd beaten PSG, Inter Milan and Barcelona. In the Bundesliga, they were just 1 point off the top of the table. Everything was on track for a treble. Then Bayern sacked him. The board claimed they felt the treble was in danger. Nagelsmann was 35 years old, one of the brightest tactical minds in Europe, and he was on a skiing holiday during the international break when the news leaked. The timing made it a PR disaster. They replaced him with Thomas Tuchel, who immediately lost 2 of the 3 competitions. The treble they were so worried about. Gone within weeks. Nagelsmann's sacking wasn't about failure. It was about fear. Fear that he might not deliver perfection. At the highest level, even excellence isn't safe. Level 2. The timing disasters. Vicente del Bosque. He managed Real Madrid for nearly 4 years. In that time, he won 2 Champions League titles and 2 La Liga championships. He made the semi-finals of the Champions League in all 4 campaigns. He managed a dressing room full of Galacticos, Zidane, Ronaldo, Figo, Makelele, and kept them all happy despite having almost no say in transfer policy. In 2003, Real Madrid won their 29th domestic title, putting them 13 ahead of Barcelona. The very next day, Vicente del Bosque was sacked. President Florentino Perez said he was too old-fashioned and not marketable enough for the brand they were building. It didn't matter that he delivered everything. What mattered was image. After Del Bosque left, Real Madrid went through 9 managers in the next 7 years. They were knocked out of the Champions League in the round of 16 for 6 consecutive seasons. It would take nearly a decade before they found another manager who could last more than 18 months, Jose Mourinho. Del Bosque, meanwhile, went on to manage Spain. He won the 2010 World Cup and Euro 2012, cementing his legacy as one of the greatest managers ever. Real Madrid's loss became the world's gain. Sam Allardyce. Blackburn Rovers were 19th in the Premier League with 13 points from 17 matches when Sam Allardyce took over in 2008. His first game? A 3-0 win over Stoke City, ending an 11-match winless run. Over the next 9 games, Blackburn went unbeaten. They finished the season in 15th place, safe from relegation. The following year, Allardyce improved them to 10th and took them to the League Cup semi-finals, all while working with one of the smallest budgets in the division. Then the club was sold. The new owners, the Heynckes, a poultry company from India, had big plans. They blocked Allardyce from taking a lucrative job offer in Dubai, promising him backing and stability. 4 months later, with the team sitting in 13th place, they sacked him anyway. They wanted to bring in their own man, Steve Keane. Under Keane, Blackburn collapsed. They were relegated the following season for the first time in over a decade. They haven't been back to the Premier League since. Allardyce's crime? Being there when new ownership arrived. Andre Villas-Boas. At Chelsea, his team took around 6 shots more than they conceded per game. That Chelsea side ranks 12th for the most shots by a Premier League team since 2009. At Tottenham, his team ranks 10th, with a bigger gap between chances created and conceded than the current Liverpool squad. His system required intense pressing and a high defensive line. When it worked, it was devastating. When the opposition broke through, it was brutal. A 6-0 loss to Manchester City, a 5-0 defeat to Liverpool. Those results got him sacked. But here's the thing. At Tottenham, he was dismissed despite achieving a then Premier League record of 72 points for Spurs. His signings, Gylfi Sigurdsson, Jan Vertonghen and Roberto Soldado, would go on to become stars under Mauricio Pochettino. At Chelsea, his sacking led directly to their Cinderella run to the Champions League title under Roberto Di Matteo. Villas-Boas was building something. He just wasn't given the time to finish it. Level 3. The impatient executions. Marco Giampaolo. AC Milan were a mess in 2019. They'd just finished 5th under Gennaro Gattuso, whose tactics were defensive, rigid, and uninspiring. The club wanted a fresh start. They wanted someone who could bring back the beautiful football Milan were known for. So they poached Marco Giampaolo from Sampdoria, where he'd spent years developing an attractive, possession-based style. At Sampdoria, he'd improved the team year after year, despite losing key players like Lucas Torreira, Bruno Fernandes, and Dennis Pret. Milan gave him a new challenge: implement a completely new system with a squad that had been drilled in the opposite style for years. He won 3 and lost 4 of his first 7 games. Milan sacked him. They replaced him with Stefano Pioli, who'd been rejected by Inter just 2 seasons earlier. The club didn't give Giampaolo time to bed in his ideas. They didn't give the players time to adapt. They panicked, and it cost them. Louis van Gaal. When Louis van Gaal arrived at Manchester United in 2014, the club was in disarray. They'd just finished 7th under David Moyes. Van Gaal was given £175 million to spend in his first summer. Angel Di Maria, Ander Herrera, Marcos Rojo, Daley Blind, and Radamel Falcao on loan. In his first season, he took United from 7th to 4th. Progress. But the football was painful to watch. United recorded their worst goals per game ratio since 1993. Van Gaal had dismantled the club's reputation for attacking football and replaced it with possession for possession's sake. In his second season, he won the FA Cup. Days later, he was sacked. The club replaced him with Jose Mourinho, who demanded another £167 million to conduct his own rebuild. That rebuild also failed. Here's the kicker. In the summer of 2016, when Van Gaal was sacked, Pep Guardiola, Carlo Ancelotti, and Antonio Conte were all changing clubs. If United had shown a little patience, they could have waited and gone after one of them. Instead, they rushed into Mourinho and wasted another 3 years. Van Gaal wasn't perfect, but he was building something. United just didn't have the patience to see it through. Frank de Boer. Crystal Palace hired Frank de Boer in 2017 with big ambitions. He'd won 4 consecutive titles at Ajax. He was a disciple of total football. He was going to transform Palace from a relegation battler into a possession-based side. The problem? Palace gave him exactly 2 permanent signings, Jairo Riedewald and Mamadou Sakho. That's it. No full squad overhaul. No time to implement his system properly. 4 games into the season, Palace had 0 points, 0 goals scored, and 7 conceded. De Boer was sacked after 77 days, one of the shortest reign in Premier League history. But here's what nobody talks about. The underlying numbers weren't terrible. Palace had nearly 5 expected points from those 4 games. Their predicted goal difference was -2, which was better than 6 other teams in the league at the time. De Boer's successor, Roy Hodgson, was praised for keeping Palace up. But the recruitment remained poor and the club continued to struggle. De Boer was made the scapegoat for structural problems that had nothing to do with him. Level 4. The controversial ones. Enzo Maresca, January 1st, 2026. Chelsea sacked Enzo Maresca, continuing their relentless cycle of managerial chaos. Here's the thing. Maresca had won trophies, the Conference League, the FIFA Club World Cup, both in 2025. He delivered silverware just months before being fired. But Maresca made a fatal mistake. He clashed with the board over control of the medical department. He wanted to overrule return-to-play protocols for Reece James and Wesley Fofana. The sporting directors blocked him, prioritising the protection of their assets over winning matches. After a win against Everton, Maresca described the build-up to the match as his worst 48 hours at the club. He refused to elaborate, but sources confirmed he'd put himself on a collision course with the owners. Chelsea replaced him with Liam Rosenior, handing him an unprecedented 6.5-year contract in a desperate attempt to signal long-term stability. Maresca joined Roberto Di Matteo, Carlo Ancelotti, and Jose Mourinho as Chelsea managers sacked immediately after winning trophies. At Chelsea, even success isn't safe if you challenge the hierarchy. Gus Poyet. Gus Poyet didn't just get sacked. He found out he was sacked while working as a pundit on live BBC television. He was covering the Confederations Cup when production staff walked over and handed him a printout. It was a club statement from Brighton announcing his dismissal. He had to sit there on live TV and analyse his own firing. "I think the BBC have a great story forever," he said, trying to laugh it off. The manner of his sacking became more famous than his actual tenure. It was humiliating, bizarre, and completely avoidable. Brighton could have called him. They could have sent an email. Instead, they let him find out on national television. Martin Jol, October 2007. Tottenham were playing Getafe in a UEFA Cup match at White Hart Lane. During the game, news leaked that Martin Jol had been sacked. Fans in the stadium started receiving text messages. "Jol's been sacked!" The rumours spread like wildfire. Jol, standing on the touchline, had no idea. He managed the entire second half while the crowd chanted his name, unaware that his fate had already been sealed. After the final whistle, he was told. It was one of the most humiliating sackings in football history. Jol had done nothing to deserve that kind of treatment. He'd been a solid, reliable manager. But Tottenham wanted a change, and they handled it in the worst way possible. Level 5. The political casualties. Ruben Amorim, January 5th, 2026. Manchester United sacked Ruben Amorim after 14 months in charge. On paper, the stats justified it. A 31.9% win rate in the Premier League, the lowest of any post-Ferguson manager. United finished 15th in 2024-25, their lowest ever Premier League finish. At the time of his sacking, they were 6th, but the damage was done. But the real story wasn't the results. It was the war behind the scenes. After a 1-1 draw with Leeds United, Amorim launched into a wild outburst directed at technical director Jason Wilcox. The issue? Wilcox had been describing himself internally as like a manager, while referring to Amorim as merely the coach. Amorim exploded.
I came here to be the manager of Manchester United, not to be the coach of Manchester United. And that is clear. I know that my name is not Tuchel, it's not Conte, it's not Mourinho, but I'm the manager of Manchester United.
The dispute was about more than titles. It was about power. Amorim wanted control over recruitment. Wilcox stripped him of it. Amorim requested Antoine Semenyo, a winger he believed could fix United's attack. The board denied the request. Semenyo joined Manchester City for £65 million and immediately excelled. Amorim felt set up to fail. He was wedded to a 3-4-3 formation that didn't suit United's squad. He deployed Luke Shaw as a centre-back, limiting his attacking output. He played Diogo Dalot on the left, which congested the midfield. The tactics weren't working, but he wasn't given the tools to fix them. This wasn't just a sacking, it was a structural civil war, and Amorim lost. Level 6. The failures of excellence. Xabi Alonso, January 12, 2026. Real Madrid sacked Xabi Alonso after just 255 days in charge. His record? 24 wins, 4 draws, 6 losses, a 70.6% win rate. At most clubs, that's a dream. At Real Madrid, it's a fireable offense. The trigger was a 3-2 defeat to Barcelona in the Supercopa de España final. Losing a trophy to your arch-rivals is politically fatal at the Bernabeu. It doesn't matter how well you've done in the league. It doesn't matter that you're still in the Champions League. Lose to Barcelona in a final, and you're done. But there's more to the story. Real Madrid had a specific clause in Alonso's contract. If they sacked him during his first season, they'd only owe him 1 year's salary, around 7 to 9 million euros, instead of the full 3-year package. The board had built in an escape hatch. They viewed Alonso as a calculated risk with a pre-planned exit strategy. When things didn't go perfectly, they pulled the trigger. There was also a medical conflict. The medical staff advised against playing Eder Militao and David Alaba at the Club World Cup due to concerns about the pitch conditions in the United States. Alonso was caught between medical advice and board expectations. He couldn't win. Real Madrid replaced him immediately with Alvaro Arbeloa. Alonso's sacking proves that at the very top, being good isn't good enough. You have to be perfect, and even then, one bad result can end you. At Real Madrid, excellence is the baseline. Anything less is failure. Pablo Machin. Sevilla sacked Pablo Machin in 2019 after just 10 months in charge. Here's what the stats said. Sevilla ranked second in La Liga by expected points. They had the second best attack behind Barcelona. Machin's tactics were working. Here's what actually happened. Sevilla suffered from terrible luck. They earned 7 points fewer than their underlying numbers predicted. Their actual goal difference was +10. Their expected goal difference was +18. Teams like Levante and Getafe overperformed, while Sevilla underperformed. Machin was sacked despite a 5-2 victory over Real Sociedad in his final game. Sevilla finished 6th. They replaced him with Julen Lopetegui, who earned the exact same expected points per game as Machin. Lopetegui's Sevilla had a better defence, but a much more boring attack. Machin's sacking was a failure to understand variance. Sometimes the numbers tell you everything. Sevilla just didn't listen. Level 7. The absolutely deserved. Ole Gunnar Solskjær. Manchester United kept Ole Gunnar Solskjær in the job far longer than they should have. What started as a nostalgic caretaker appointment in December 2018 turned into a 3-year experiment that exposed every limitation he had as a manager. Sure, he had moments. The 2019 comeback against PSG in the Champions League, finishing second in 2020 to 2021. But those highs masked a deeper problem. Ole had no tactical identity, no clear system, no plan beyond give it to Bruno, or let the lads express themselves. By the time the 2021 to 22 season rolled around, United had spent over £400 million on his signings. Cristiano Ronaldo, Jadon Sancho, Raphael Varane. On paper, it was a squad built to challenge for titles. In reality, it was a tactical mess. The breaking point came in October 2021, a 5-0 humiliation at home to Liverpool. Mohamed Salah scored a hat-trick at Old Trafford while United's defence collapsed like a house of cards. Ole stood on the touchline, helpless, watching his team get torn apart. 2 weeks later, a 2-0 loss to Manchester City. Then a 4-1 defeat to Watford, a team fighting relegation. United were 7th in the table, 12 points off the top, and the football was unwatchable. Ole's win rate at United was 52.3%. Respectable on paper, but context matters. He never won a trophy. He bottled multiple semi-finals and finals. The Europa League final loss to Villarreal in 2021, where United failed to score against a team they should have beaten comfortably, summed up his entire tenure. He was a club legend as a player, but as a manager, he was out of his depth. United kept him around because of sentimentality, not competence. When they finally sacked him in November 2021, it was about 2 years too late. Ole's sacking wasn't a tragedy, it was a mercy. Jose Mourinho. By December 2018, Jose Mourinho had turned Manchester United into a toxic wasteland. The football was miserable. The dressing room was in open revolt, and Mourinho himself had become a walking meltdown. United were 19 points behind Liverpool and 11 points off the top four. They just lost 3-1 to Liverpool at Anfield, a performance so lifeless it felt like watching a team that had given up. But it wasn't the results that sealed Mourinho's fate. It was everything around them. He'd publicly humiliated players. Paul Pogba, the club's record signing, was frozen out and stripped of the vice-captaincy. Luke Shaw was constantly criticised in press conferences. The squad had stopped playing for him. After a 3-0 loss to Tottenham at Old Trafford in August 2018, Mourinho was asked about the club's struggles. Instead of taking responsibility, he launched into a bizarre defence of his own record, listing every trophy he'd won while dismissing United's history. United sacked him 2 days after a 3-1 loss to Liverpool. By that point, it wasn't just deserved, it was overdue. Mourinho's time at United proved that even the greatest managers have an expiration date, and his had long since passed. Drop your prediction in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.